Today's episode of the Project Management for the Masses podcast is brought to you by Career Academy, a global leader in on-demand training solutions for IT and business professionals. What would you say if I told you can get complete video training packages for the PMP exam, PMI Agile Certified Practitioner, CAPM, and PMI Risk Management Professional certifications, and get up to 180 PDUs, all of it for just $99. Visit pmforthemasses.com/academy to sign up. The website again is pmforthemasses.com/academy.
Project managers, have you ever felt like you should get that promotion or a better job? Start a business, write that book. Have you ever felt you were made for more but didn't know where to start?
Welcome to the PM for the Masses podcast with your host, Caesar Abaid.
Learn from the experts, think outside the box, have a voice, network, and be extraordinary.
PM for the Masses podcast.
Well, hello everyone and welcome. I'm Caesar Abaid, your host. And this show is your weekly reminder that your career matters more than your job and that your life is a project and you are the manager. Whether you work for a company or for yourself, your job stability is really just your ability to land your next gig. So join me in practicing intentional, planned, and value-adding relevance, starting right now. It is another week here on the Project Management for the Masses podcast, and it is my pleasure to bring you my friend David Allen back to the show. I was just thinking about this right before I started recording this episode, how blessed I am to be able to reach out to folks like David Allen and have a conversation with them. And I'm very privileged. I feel very privileged to be able to bring these conversations to you. And I hope that you get as much value from these talks as I do. Also, my friend Dave Gordon is back to the show with his must-read articles of the week related to project management. So, let's get started.
Special guest coming up next. pmforthemasses.com. pmforthemasses.com.
David Allen is the world-leading expert in personal and organizational productivity. In over 25 years, he has coached the CEOs of some of the world's most successful corporations and institutions. Forbes has even recognized him as one of the top 5 executive coaches in the world. Fast Company magazine has also called David, quote, one of the world's most influential thinkers, end quote, in the arena of personal productivity for his outstanding programs and writing on time and stress management, the power of aligned focus and vision, and his groundbreaking methodologies in management and executive peak performance. David is the international best-selling author of Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, which this year has just come out with in its second edition, and Ready for Anything, 52 Productivity Principles for Work and Life. And David is on the line with me from his home in Amsterdam. David, welcome back to the show.
Hey, glad to be here, Caesar. Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, you know, I told you this last time, and I'm going to say it again because this was back in episode 3, I think. And you were gracious enough to say yes to my invitation back then, even before the show was even launched. So I appreciate the vote of confidence there. And to this day, it's one of the most downloaded episodes when I first had you on the show. And one thing I said back then is that GTD really changed and, you know, it kind of saved my career and my life. And I just wanted to take a moment here just to say thank you.
Yeah. Hey, you know, I always love to hear that. It changed my life, so I'm thrilled to actually have the opportunity to have a venue to share that with people who take advantage of it. But you did it, as you know, you actually have to do it. It's not a silver bullet unless you actually apply it. Good work. It's, as you know, as I've said before, it's the most productive people that are most attracted and get the most out of this. It's a testimony to your proclivity to productivity that you took to it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I went to engineering school. I've always been kind of a smart kid, let's say, but I can never finish anything. I can never accomplish anything. And now it's really funny that people write me all the time and seeing the things that I do. I just finished writing a book, and I'm doing the podcast, and I speak, and I have a 9 to 5 job, and have 3 kids, and they are amazed at everything that I managed to do. And to me, it's really funny that I got to this point, that I'm actually known for actually doing things. And I owe it to GTD and to your book. It really is true.
Well, back to the whole topic of project management. It's interesting to me. I mean, I never did any formal study of either business or, certainly no traditional or formal education in terms of business or psychology or project planning or any of that. I mean, mine is all just street smarts, if it's smart at all. But, it seems to me that a whole lot of the nature of being able to get a lot done is being able to manage placeholders. And so, we can't multitask, but we can rapidly switch as long as you've got placeholders for what you're, for where you are on that. So people say, well, gee, David, is there some maximum number of projects that I could manage? And I go, no, not really. You could keep 600 plates spinning in the air as long as you have appropriate placeholders for where you are on each one of those. And so some part of you, when you leave one, can move to whatever the next one is and come back to it and pick up where you left off. And of course, there are obviously many other factors, in terms of prioritizing and resource allocation and so forth. But I think that's to a large degree. But wouldn't you say that that's true, Cesar? I mean, that's why you can get so much stuff done, is because you don't have to finish things. You just have to put them in their place, and then just appropriately, sort of like a good chef. Let's go turn the fire on that one off. Oops, time to take that one off the burner. Let's go over there. That needs sauce on it now. I mean, that, to me, a chef sort of represents that. How many things can you keep going at the same time and make it all work?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And the fact that, you provided us with a system that works, because what I would try to do in the past was to try to come up with my own all the time. And I think it's maybe the guru effect. I don't know if that's a term or not, but when somebody else from the outside tells you and teaches you a system, then you tend to trust it more than the one that you create yourself. And so I tried all sorts of different things to keep track of things, and nothing ever worked until I tried GTD. And what you said about the placeholder is that you place your ideas and your thoughts and your projects in a place where you're going to check later, and that is off your mind. And later you can look at this and say, you know what, I don't really think I need to do this right now, and just drop it. But at least it didn't take up your mental bandwidth in between those 2 moments, when you first think about it and then when you decide to drop it. And also, you mentioned, you can take up as many projects as you want, and I tend to do that. And you can just keep working on next actions, and then it comes to a point, to me at least, that, you know what, this one particular project is just moving way too slowly, and I need to get this done. So I can actually forget everything else and just focus on that, because I know that everything else will be there waiting for me when I'm ready to return to them. Yeah, no,
that's really great. And interesting, not exactly to the topic you mentioned here, but in one of the forums, they've got several forums, alive and well out there around GTD. And one of the forums, somebody was talking about the fact that, they were wondering about time blocking. Should you look on your calendar and block out 3 hours on Tuesday to work on this Y and Z? And a lot of the GTD crowd were going, oh, no, that's not GTD. That's not GTD. That's an immature aspect or perception of what GTD is. Like, if you need to block out three hours on Wednesday afternoon, because that's the only time that you could get an uninterrupted time to be able to write that pro forma or the business plan or the project plan or whatever, and you really need to do that, absolutely, that's GTD to block it out and to make sure that's true. So, it's funny, people's perceptions, I think, of what GTD is oftentimes slightly off mark in terms of it needs to be a lot more flexible. It needs to be a lot more structured. It needs to be as flexible or as structured as you need, so that your head's clear and you can be present with whatever you're focused on. It's really, in a sense, that simple. But you were just reflecting that, hey, yeah, the cool thing about it is I can now take my calendar, block off the whole 4 days, because I really need to do that, and given the priorities and given what I want to do. And you have the freedom to do that because it's very easy to then look across the other inventory of everything else you have and say, that'll all wait.
Yeah, I found it extremely useful when I was writing the book, for example, because there were some deadlines that I set for myself, and you can't just you write a book by just looking at next actions. I mean, your next action is write chapter 4. You know,
Trust me, I almost, it was so funny how stressed I got writing a book about stress-free productivity.
That's refreshing to know.
I'd never done that before. I assumed, hey, after a breakfast meeting with a client and then stand-up seminar, I delivered all day, and then drinks with clients afterwards, and get on a plane for 2 hours, assuming I could write the next chapter. It's like, who are you kidding?
Yeah,
what?
I found that creative work is really draining on me, at least. You know, I only have so much to give, and doing podcasting, which is a creative, and writing blog posts, which is also creative, and the book on top of that, it was really challenging.
No, some of the recent cognitive science research, I forget where I read it, but someone had done, some research, or based upon the research that was done, said basically you've got about a max of 3 to 4 hours a day of being able to do that kind of creative thinking, because it truly does draw down that muscle. That is a part of your brain, that reflective part of your brain is the part that gets tired. That's where decision fatigue comes in. So I'm not sure if in our last interview I'd mentioned the book Brain Chains, a recent book by Theo Campanale, on basically a compilation and aggregation of a lot of the new cognitive science research.
You did mention another book on another show that you're a guest on, and I actually picked up and read it. I don't think it was Brain Chain. Maybe it was
The Organized Mind.
The Organized Mind. My goodness, that was a good book.
Yeah, it's great. Well, even since then, there's a book called Brain Chain. So do not pass go, collect $100, go get that. It is an absolutely incredible compilation of great research about all that stuff. And it's really a manual for how your brain works. It's kind of like your manual for how your microwave works or your camera or whatever. Here's a manual for how your brain actually works, what it does well and what it doesn't do well. And it basically just blows the heck out of anybody's myth that multitasking is something that you can do and increase your productivity.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest lessons from GTD and from just doing all this stuff is the fact that we, at least myself, we kid ourselves that we have the capacity to do these things just using our brains as a filing cabinet and as a task manager. And we can't. I mean, we need to know what we're good at and just focus on that, right?
Your head is a crappy office.
No kidding.
And I don't know how long we're going to be preaching this out there, but the world is most people are still using their head as their office. Even if they have lists, even if they have some sort of a system, it's not everything is in that system. So they're still trusting their head more than their system for remembering and reminding and for making choices. And your head is actually good for making choices, but it needs to have all the options out in front of it. If it has to make choices and still try to remember all the options to make choices from, you're screwed. Your brain doesn't do that. It was designed and evolved over millions of years to handle about 4 meaningful things at any one point in time. Mm-hmm. So any more than that, you will start to be driven by latest and loudest.
Mm-hmm. Now, one negative side effect of all this, and I don't know if you've addressed this anywhere, but I find sometimes that because I'm able to keep all these plates spinning, I find that it's hard sometimes to focus on one thing. Have you found that to be the case with other people as well?
That's a hard one to answer. There's a big it depends. Some people, who have more of an associative kind of, mindset or framework in terms of how they're wired. And that's, we tend to have both associational thinking in our head as well as sequential thinking. Associational says, oh, Caesar, that reminds me. Oh, I'm looking at that sunflower. Oh, when I think about the sunflowers, I think about that, but that reminds me too, because I had a piece of, that's the associational brain that says, hey, that reminds me of that, that reminds me of that. It looks for bigger pictures, it looks for connections, it looks for all kinds of interesting things in that way. On the sort of way into the polarity of that, that would be the ADD, ADHD syndrome. On the other side would be, wait a minute, in order to think about that, I need to know where that came from. What was the sequence of that? What was the, how can I trust that I should be doing that? What are the four antecedent things that I need to look at? That's a sequential thinking. A plus B plus C plus D and so forth. And we all have both of those. But we will all tend to fall on one side of that equation probably more than the other. So there are a lot of people that are more highly sequential than they are associational, and vice versa. So if you're a highly associational person, you will want to, what relaxes you is stimulus from lots of different things. You get, trying to do GTD initially and sit down and make these lists, you'd feel like you're being put into slow motion because you actually have to sit down and wait a minute, let me get all this stuff together in some sequential, orderly way. By the way, the polarity of the sequential would be OCD, obsessive compulsive, where you're down on the other side of that. It's kind of the micromanagement in detail. So part of it is your personality more wired to be doing that. The issue would be, is it affecting your results and experiences in a negative way? So I think that's what you'd have to assess. One of the reasons that I'm doing the work I'm doing is because I just got bored, working with the same thing in the same way. I used to go into people's offices and friends of mine as I started my consulting practice and look around and see what needed to be improved so that you could be lazier and get more done with less effort. And then once I installed that improvement, I got bored. I was like, what else to do? And so I just left the job. So at one point I realized they actually paid people to do that. They called them consultants. So I said, okay, well, that's hung up my shingle. And I said, okay, now I get everything I do in a sense is different. I get to work with different people in different contexts and different companies in different situations, different countries now. So I love that kind of variety. I mean, to me, that's relaxing. But that may be more my personality style than anything else. But it's certainly, GTD allows me to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that's what you were addressing. Was that what you were asking about?
Yeah, no, and I hadn't thought about it in terms of the two spectrums there, the OCD and the ADD, and I think I have both tendencies actually at different times.
Yeah,
definitely ADD, and that's how GTD has helped me so much because I can.
Well, it gives you a strategy to be able to give you more freedom to follow some of those rabbit trails.
Right.
Right.
And I see in my daughter. My daughter is 8. She's just like me, like female version of me. And we have this daydreaming personality. We can just like zone out for like 10 minutes, just thinking about the weirdest things. And associations, as you said.
Yeah.
And in the past, that was a source of stress for me because it's like, okay, I'm wasting time. There's all this stuff I need to do. But now, because I know that I can just go to my OmniFocus and all my whole life is there, and I can just review it at any time, I feel like I'm more free to let my brain go places, like that, and enjoy life more.
Sure. Well, as the new edition of my book sort of emphasizes, one of the things we've really realized over all these years is that what GTD produces is space, and you don't need time; you need room. It doesn't take any time to have a good idea. It doesn't take time to be present or loving with your kids. It doesn't take time. But what you do have to have is room. If your head is distracted, then it's very difficult to be present with your kids and very difficult to have a creative idea. So the idea of being able to be present in any point in time, that ability to be able to do that really requires you to be able to have room inside your head. So, to have room to play with your daughter in a brainstorming, dreamlike, creative way. That's how you use that space. As I say, people use space for a lot of different reasons. A 24-year-old rock musician is going to use space to have more song ideas and finish more songs. 53-year-old executive that's involved in a corporate merger will have more space to think strategically, to be more focused, in the board meeting in terms of what they need to focus on. So how people use space, I think, is quite individual to your intentions and your life and your lifestyle. But what GTD does invariably is produce space for people, the room to do that. And you were just giving a testimony to that fact in your case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great insight there about space versus time. Yeah. It doesn't take time. That's true. It's our thinking is instantaneous, but we do need the space, real estate.
But yeah, it's psychic space or mental space.
Yeah.
Room inside your head.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, being distracted or pulled in 42 different directions.
All right, just a quick break here to let you know that we have a sponsor. Career Academy is offering an exclusive project management certification training bundle for the PM for the Masses listeners, which you can get at pmforthemasses.com/academy. This bundle includes complete video training packages for the PMP exam, PMI ACP or Agile Certified Practitioner, CAPM, and the PMI Risk Management Professional certifications. Also, you can get up to 180 PDUs with this bundle, and the cost is only $99. So yeah, go to pmforthemasses.com/academy and sign up. Again, go to pmforthemasses.com/academy to sign up. So let's talk a little bit about the second edition of the book. The first edition, I think it was 2002, so it's been a while. So what was the need for a reboot of the book?
Well, I knew if people picked it up now and read it, it would feel dated, not because of the methodology, but because of some of the language and terminology and some of the examples that I was given. The book was, when I first wrote it, I was somewhat self-consciously focused on the high-performing professional, sort of the fast-track professional, because that's how the book was really positioned. Those are the people who were most at effect of the email flood that was starting then, and the sense of overwhelm and multitasking and all that stuff. So in a way, the first edition was more focused toward that kind of folks, and people would read that and say they got a lot of value, but gee, this is so corporate focused. I've known from even way before that this was extremely useful and powerful for kids and for the clergy and for stay-at-home dads and for physicians and accountants and anybody, frankly, teachers. So I think the new edition, what I needed to do was sort of update the positioning of it, update the examples, and really some of the subtleties that as I've uncovered them over the last 15 years since I wrote the first edition, realizing some of the subtlety of the power of this model, of the GTD model, and why it is so sublime and powerful. So changing some of the languaging, simple but subtle stuff, like changing the idea of collecting things that have your attention versus capturing. So capturing is a better word to really describe, how do I get stuff into the funnel that I need to process. So being able to expand that a little bit. The second stage of getting control, for instance, I originally called process. You need to process your in-basket. But the second stage is really about clarifying. Okay, once you've got stuff that's got your attention, you need to clarify more specifically what it means to you, what you're going to do about it. So some of those languaging from collect to capture, from process to clarify, from review to reflect, and from do to engage. Because a lot of I think, perception and I think a misperception of GTD was that this is for, wow, this is hard work, this is productivity, this is business-like, this is left brain, this is corporate, etc. In truth, GTD is really it's not about getting things done. It's about being able to be appropriately engaged with your life so that you can be present with whatever you're doing. So, because that is a productive state to operate from, is when you're present, whether you're hitting a golf ball or tucking your kids in at night or trying to write a strategic plan or whatever you're doing. So that's what GTD is about from, my perspective, our perspective. And so rewriting it so we could position it that way. And also that this is not a sprint, it's a marathon. This is not a one-time transactional event where you suddenly get the big key to time management. it's not even about time management. It really is a lifelong lifestyle process. And so, adding a whole chapter really described the path of GTD mastery as a lifelong lifestyle path. I mean, how good can you get at parenting? How good can you get at cooking? How good can you get at speaking Italian? How good can you get at, at math? Well, there's no end to those things. And there is no end to the art and craft, essentially, of the elegance of how you manage the flow of life's work. So trying to position it that way, believe me, at 70, I don't intend to write this again. so part of it was just that, Caesar, I just said, look, I just need to bring this up to date right now, as up to date as I can get it, so that it even becomes more evergreen. Even when we wrote it back, back in 99, 2000, and writing it out, we're trying to make it as evergreen as possible, so that, we tried to strip out any business buzzwords and things like that. But again, we could only do that so well, and so it just needed another version of that, if you will. And, I've added some additional information from cognitive science. There's a whole chapter in there about the cognitive sciences validated this methodology, in the last 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the changes.
Mm-hmm. One thing that certainly changed, I think I read the book in 2009 or 2010. I think it was 2009. And even then, it was kind of, I remember thinking about that. One thing that's really changed is our relationship with our workspace and where we do work, because of mobile technology and things like that.
Sure.
I remember reading the first time, and you talk about contexts, when you're at the phone, when you're at the computer, when you're at home. And I remember thinking, this doesn't really apply to me because I'm always at the computer, at home, at the phone. So what are your thoughts on contexts on this day and age?
Well, you're right. A lot of those have sort of imploded together, because you're as likely to be doing work on your smartphone, anywhere, as well as, your computer or whatever. I still think there's value to context-based reminders, because if you're not in a context, you can't do it. It's just that, some of those contexts have shifted and changed. Many people have come up with very creative ways to think about context, like psychological context. Am I in a state right now where I can do creative writing? And so what's my creative writing list? I have a list of sort of creative writing projects that would normally have gone on my computer list because I need my computer to do it, but I needed to spin those out because I need to be in a different psychological and emotional and physical context to be working on those things than just sitting at my desk and cranking through stuff that's more sort of mechanical and just task-based stuff at the computer. So, context, I think, is still important, but how flexible that needs to be and how you need to then customize that for yourself, given your lifestyle and work style, is totally, it's really infinite. Yeah. So I think that's what's changed, is that, we gave people some suggestions that people, again, said, well, gee, is that canonical GTD that I have to have a calls list and a computer list or whatever? No, put it all on one list, if that works for you. I think you'll find that won't work for you, because most people have over 150 next actions. So every time you sit down and have time to do something, you have to scan through 150 things to say, gee, what are all the things to do? You won't do that. So there's probably some level of context. I doubt, Caesar, sitting even at home at your computer, that you don't need to be reminded of the errands that you need to do until you're ready to go out for errands. Right?
Yeah, true.
So there's no hard edge to what are the best contexts. There's it says, hey, does it work for you to create some context, so that you don't have to look at everything all the time?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's something I could probably take more advantage of using the use of context. I do have errands and grocery store context, and
Sure.
and I have one that I created. It's called recliner chair. It's like at the end of the day when I'm sitting with my wife in the family room,
Yeah,
kids are
cool.
down. There are some things that I can do there. I don't know, renew my AAA membership. This type of stuff,
Sure.
and that works. But the work stuff is still a little bit. I think I could improve there. Could do better.
Well, it may not need it. You don't have to, tease this apart into further context if what you've got works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It would be nice to be able to look at my lists and have only like 4 or 5 items based on whatever, state of mind or place, and I'm still not there. So
Well, yeah, more fun to play.
more fun to play. Exactly, things to try out.
Hmm.
Very good. Now, we talk a lot. You talk about the knowledge worker on the book, and I really believe that GTD is the go-to guide for the knowledge worker. Are we still knowledge workers, or where are we headed with work?
Well, I put a footnote in the new edition of the book that knowledge worker is probably not even a term to use, because most kids, who are, certainly the millennials, don't even think about knowledge work because their life just so much is that. Like the last thing a fish notices is water.
Right.
So the last thing that most people would notice is that they're actually having to think to figure out what to do. So, as soon as you look, you're out on the street and you talk to your neighbor and you find out that their 6-year-old is going to a workshop about X, Y, and Z that's going to allow them to get into college, and whatever, and you're going, oh my God, I got to find out about that. I have to figure out what am I doing with my kids, and am I the best parent that I could possibly be, and am I sending my kids exactly where I need to send my kids? You're a knowledge worker.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're going to have to think. Right? You're going to have to go research. You're going to have to look into it. But that's so much the nature of the world everybody is in that it's almost worth it probably just discarding that. I mean, the idea of knowledge worker was that, as opposed to your work is self-evident physically and visibly. If your job is making and moving things, you show up and there's a bunch of unmade, unmoved things. You're not a knowledge worker. You're just somebody whose job is to make and move things. And, that the work essentially tells you what to do. So a knowledge worker would show up and says, well, I have 16 things I need to move. I have 43 things I need to make. And they're all available to me right now, and I have to decide which one. Now you're a knowledge worker, meaning I have to think. I have to take into consideration, X, Y, and Z information. I then have to make decisions about that. And there's nobody that is not a self-evident decision. So that's what, the late Peter Drucker was talking about when he was saying that's the biggest job people have these days, is actually defining what your work is, and that it's not self-evident. Like in the old days. So, in that sense, yes, we are. I don't think we're going nowhere, but more and more of that kind of thing, and more people on the planet. If you're in survival mode, you're not a knowledge worker. You're just trying to live. Just eat, and survive.
Yeah.
So but anybody out beyond that who has any kind of discretionary time and resources, and that you actually have to think to figure out what's the best thing to do at any point in time, that's not going away.
That's not going away. That's true.
Mm-mm.
Now, since you wrote the book in 2002, and now second edition, it's been a number of years. And do you think that we are more productive today and we deal with less stress than when you first wrote the book?
I don't know. I have no idea. I think I think there is a syndrome which is you would call the stress of opportunity. The fact is that you have so many things that you could play with now, especially with social media, and the fact that the world is so 24/7, always on, always connected, global. You don't really work anywhere. You work everywhere. Even if you have an office, you're still working at Starbucks and on Saturday morning, and you're still, Sunday night at home at your desk and doing email. And in the sense that we've become so much more of it, sort of ubiquitously attached to the material world as it's changing and moving, and we have all these great opportunities of things that we could be looking into that could improve our lives, that could be interesting or fun or distracting, then I think if you know what you're doing, it's a great time to be alive. If you don't, it's very easy to blow a fuse.
Very true, very true. And it's a combination of fear of missing out, and with social media, it's also easy to compare yourself with other people to see how wonderful lives they've been leading. and you feel like you're behind, and that causes stress to a lot of people as well. So I think you're right. It's if you know what you're doing, if your mind is like water, and you know who you are, and you know what your priorities are, then it's easier to not get yourself distracted by these things and feel bad about yourself.
That's the good news about this, plethora of opportunity and input and communication, is that it just is going to make it that much more critical to get GTD under your belt, or these kind of best practices. So it makes it easier to then make those kind of decisions and not be pulled 42 ways from Sunday.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I recommend GTD to everyone I meet who either in a professional setting or not. It's a game changer. It was for me, and I think it can be for everyone. David, if people want to get the book and learn more about you, where should they go?
Gettingthingsdone.com is our website. Lots of fun stuff there you can play around with. The book should be available wherever books are available. So the new edition is out there on all those regular channels, as well as on our website. You can get it there as well.
Perfect. And I'll add links to your website and to the Amazon link for the book as well on the show notes for today's episode.
Cool.
David, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I probably will not have you for the third edition of the book, but maybe for a new book that you write.
You never know. Yeah. Thanks. My pleasure.
You are listening to the PM for the Masses podcast.
Hi, this is Dave Gordon with the Project Management Must-Read articles for this week. At Inc.com, Suzanne Lucas, the evil HR lady, explains the alternatives businesses will face when implementing the Department of Labor's new overtime rules. If you manage U.S.-based employees, chances are that some of the people currently considered salaried are going to become hourly workers. Don't let this come as a surprise to you. And over at Forbes, Chris Wilder explains that information intelligence and the Internet of Things is driving fundamental changes to the supply chain. We're moving from just-in-time delivery to real-time, actionable intelligence at every point in the production cycle. And at Mosaic Projects, Linda Bourne builds on two earlier articles on stakeholder engagement with a focus on tools and techniques. The benefits of stakeholder engagement are well known. The challenge is always in the execution. You can find links to these articles and many more at the Practicing IT Project Manager website at practicingitpm.com.
All right. Thank you, Dave Gordon, for once again contributing this segment to the show. And thank you to David Allen. This is a Dave and Dave show today. Thank you, David Allen, for coming on to the podcast once again. It's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you. And if you didn't get this from the interview, I just wanted to reiterate again how much I love Getting Things Done. This book really, really changed the way I look at life. So I really recommend. It was that impactful on me. So I really recommend it. I'm going to have a link to it in the show notes for today's episode. By the way, today's episode is episode 88. So you can find it at pmforthemasses.com/88. And you find a link to David Allen's website, a link to Dave Gordon's articles, and also a link to Getting Things Done, the book. Now, before I go today, I just wanted to give you a quick update on my book and also talk about Career Academy. My book is actually being printed right now. The printer tells me that they should be shipping out on the 14th of August, which as of the time of this recording is just 3 days away. So really hoping that they ship it on time. And I should have the books here before the end of August, and I'll start shipping them out to the folks who bought the book through the Kickstarter campaign, and secondly to the folks who have bought the book through pre-order the book at projectmanagementforyou.com. And if you haven't pre-ordered the book, I really recommend you do it right now, because right now I'm not charging any shipping. I'm basically can go get the book and I'll ship it to you anywhere in the world. If you're in Japan or Saudi Arabia or India, I'll ship it to you at no cost to you if you purchase it right now. I will put an end to this soon because, for obvious reasons. But in the meantime, just to get to encourage you to go and get it before the book is actually available on Amazon and places like that. I'm doing that. So go to projectmanagementforyou.com to get the book. And before I go today, just wanted to give you another reminder that you need to go and check out the sponsor for today's episode, which is Career Academy. Career Academy has put together a bundle, and I've talked about this in the last few episodes, and a lot of you have gone and checked it out. This bundle is specifically, specially designed for the project management for the masses community. And you see, this is the power of podcasting, as we were able to get this bundle put together, especially for us. They understand that a lot of you are in the project management industry. A lot of you are looking for certifications, or you already have a certification and you're looking for PDUs. So the bundle that they put together costs $99, and you get training for 4 different certifications: the PMP certification, the CAPM or the CAPM or the Certified Associate in Project Management certification, the PMI Agile Certified Practitioner certification, and the PMI Risk Management Professional certification. I'm actually interested in looking at the Risk Management Professional certification myself. I think it's a valuable thing to have. Since I already have my PMP, I think that would be a good one for me to take right now. So I'm checking that out. Now, on top of the 4 certification training packages, there is also a bunch of other courses that, if you add it all together, it gets you up to 180 PDUs. 180 PDUs for $99. That's insane. So some of the courses included, besides the 4 certification training courses, which is the PMP, the CAPM, the Agile, and the Risk Management certification, there is also a course in Executive Strategy and Management. There's an Introduction to Project Management course. There is a Quality Management course, Risk Management Professional, as I said. There's Schedule and Cost Control, Scope and Requirements, Scrum Immersion, Managing Project Teams. There's Project Management Skills for Non-Project Managers, which I think is fantastic. And all these courses will give you PDUs. And on top of that, there's also Microsoft Office Project Training. Project 2003, 2007, L1 and L2, 2010. There's a basic and an advanced course, and also Project 2013, Part 1 and Part 2. So to take advantage of this offer, which is going to be valid during the time where the Career Academy is sponsoring the show, you can go to pmforthemasses.com/academy. Again, pmforthemasses.com/academy, and you'll find a page that has the PM for the Masses logo inside the Career Academy website. So if you see the PM for the Masses logo, then you know you're in the right place. Again, the link is pmforthemasses.com/academy. And just a few more things before I let you go. There are some more benefits with this. You get printable workbooks, so you can print the workbooks as you're taking the course. You can get certificates of completion for each of the courses. It's very important if you want to show proof that you have taken the training that provided. There are review quizzes. The training is on demand, so you can just watch whenever you want. And the instructors are highly qualified and chosen for their knowledge specifically. So again, go to pmforthemasses.com/academy and check out the sponsor. And thank you, Career Academy, for sponsoring the PM for the Masses podcast. Well, this is what I had for you this week. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with David Allen and the update from Dave Gordon on the must-read PM articles of the week. Check out Career Academy at pmforthemasses.com/academy, and I'll talk to you again next week. And until then, my friends, remember that life is a project and you are the manager. Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for listening to the PM for the Masses podcast.
Tune in next week for more great ideas on how to manage your projects better and truly stand out in your industry.
pmforthemasses.com